to the Career Management Podcast for Black women, where we unapologetically help you navigate your workplace crazy. I'm your host, Felicia Ann Rose Enuha, also known as the Trill MBA. Why? Because I'm the trillest MBA you will ever know. And every week, we are going to bring you the tips, tricks, and tactics you need to survive and thrive in the workplace. So if you like our content, subscribe, like, leave comments, let us know what workplace crazy you need help with. We got you. It really doesn't have to be that hard. As you'll learn in today's episode, where we are dropping gems. Let's start the show. Happy Sunday, guys. Welcome back to the show. I am so excited for today's show. I have a very special guest, Ansa Edim, founder and CEO of Blacklist. If you have not heard about Blacklist, baby, you're going to hear about it today because this is what we have needed for years. And finally, somebody said, okay, I'll do it. And I'm so happy to share this resource with you today. But a little bit about my guest. Ansa is a marketing strategist and corporate storyteller, helping businesses discover and articulate their unique brand identity and value proposition. She has led brand strategy workshops, developed cross-platform social media campaigns, and created engaging content for dozens of organizations. With over 12 years of experience in marketing, SaaS, which is software as a service, and DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, Ansa founded Blacklist, a platform that aims to unite workers at the epicenter of a burgeoning Me Too moment for underrepresented communities in the workplace. Blacklist is not just another company review site, which is why I have her on the show today. It fills a pressing market gap by providing deeper insights into a company's DEIB practices and gives employees additional insights as they seek more psychologically safe workplaces. You guys, it is so important for us to be able to understand what a company's culture really is like, and Blacklist is going to do that for us. Ansa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that intro.
Listen, let me tell you something. I have been so geeked about this episode because I need people to understand that when we're doing our company research, we should go to Blacklist first. After the company website, then immediately head on over. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Listen, I wish I had this when I was searching because it might have saved me some headaches of some companies I interviewed with. I could have saved my time. And everybody says, when you interview with a company, it's not a waste of time. It's good practice, blah, blah, blah. But there were just some companies that I know for sure I was merely a person on the slate to check a box. Mm-hmm. And I could have figured that out had I checked out Blacklist first.
Right. And had you heard from other people about their experiences there, for sure.
Exactly. Then I would have known, oh, no, this is some BS. For real. Let me go to this other company. Right. So my first question is, why did you raise your hand to do this? What had happened to you, girl?
So Blacklist actually came out of a really bad experience that I had at an organization. Shocker. As a Black woman in corporate America, in the tech space and in generally higher level leadership roles, director level roles, the closer I got to executive leadership, the more I recognized that they don't have any Black people around here for a reason, because they don't like us. And my experience at this organization a few years ago was so bad and so racist. And everyone I told the story was like, really? There? But that place is a progressive organization. And I have to scream, no, it's not. I'm shaking people by the shoulders. if you ask other Black people, they're like, oh, yeah, don't work there. But you ask literally anyone else, they're like, it's lovely. And there was nowhere I could go to talk to other people and just like scream at them and say, do not go here. This looks on paper like it's going to be a safe place, and it's not. And I wanted to tell that story. And telling the story on a place like Glassdoor, for example, Glassdoor took my review down.
What?
Yeah, they took my review down and were like, hey, it sounds like you're bullying. You got to like rework it this way. And I was like, okay, but I didn't name names. I just told my story.
Right.
So I did some research and I recognized that there isn't a place for me to safely just tell that story where other people from underrepresented communities might see it. And at the time I was working at another tech company, and I was seeing the writing on the wall there, white-led tech company. I'm kind of not in the room where I should be, or I'm feeling really not psychologically safe. And so I quit that job. And 5 days later, I was just looking at my computer and I built a website and I launched it and it went crazy. I built it in about a day.
Blood hell.
It's not just about being Black. It's about intersectionality, though, because a lot of these organizations, so I've learned, say, well, we have 2 women in leadership and they're white women. Or we have a Black person, or we have a queer person. It's a queer white person. Right. And so they don't understand that filling one bucket doesn't fill multiple buckets. They have to understand that we are more than one thing. Yeah. So I use the term underrepresented community a lot because it's for anyone who is essentially not a white man.
Oh, did someone say my name?
Right. I have some white males that listen to the show. I've gotten these random emails that say, hey, Felicia, I'm not your target, but your show helped me in my career, which I love that, right? But it never ceases to amaze me that when we say everybody except for a white male, that as a human, my first reaction is to kind of cringe. But then I realized, like, no, because if you are a white male in this country, especially, and you don't understand how to go out here and eat when everything is truly laid out for you and you can't see, or you don't want to see that everything is laid out for you, then you have got some real problems.
Right.
As a human being. And you need to go look at yourself in the mirror. And so as a human being, I get that we all have our stuff in our back seats, every human being. It doesn't matter how you show up. But especially in the workplace, when you are in these other buckets of, these fake buckets that we've all created and made into this reality, that there are real things that happen to you as a Black woman, a queer, non-binary person, as a, add Black, add this, add whatever box. There are real things that happen to you because of those boxes. And a lot of times people just don't want to admit that. And I think that's why, you have a company like Glassdoor who, correct me if I'm wrong, they get their money, or they make money from the corporations.
Yes, their revenue is driven by the corporations, by the companies, which is totally understandable, but that means that they're in the pocket of those companies.
Exactly. That's
what it feels like.
Right. Well, I didn't realize they could come to you and tell you to change your review of a company.
Yeah. So, well, first I want to say, I just want to kind of close the loop on the white male and the privilege, is that one thing that I really like about Blacklist and the space that it's created is that it's also for allies as well. Mm-hmm. So it is truly for everyone, but there are people who are from privileged communities who see things happen and they say, well, I'm going to go on Blacklist and I'm going to say, I witnessed this happen. It didn't happen to me, but it happened to my colleague, or I noticed that this company doesn't happen. Like, I've noticed that. And so maybe I should revise and say that Blacklist is truly for everyone, but the purpose is to share the stories of underrepresented communities. So I welcome everyone, and I have everyone. I get messages too that are from white men who say, hey, can I say something? Yes, obviously, of course, please join this community. But yeah, when it comes to Glassdoor, so as a review company, they need to avoid lawsuits, right? That's the first thing that everyone asked me about was, okay, you're just going to let people ramble on your site with your name on it. And there are certain ways that we are protected, at least in the United States. There are certain ways we're protected. They're called truth in review laws, where essentially, if I'm telling the truth and I haven't signed an NDA, like, you can't come after me. There's nothing I've done wrong, right? And I can make a billboard that says this happened to me. And if I can prove that it happened to me, it's really up to the person who I'm talking about to prove it didn't happen.
Right.
And what happens on Glassdoor is that they are very understandably safe. They err on the safe side. So if my review said the CEO did X, and somebody can Google who the CEO is, then Glassdoor might step in and say, hey, you're towing the line here. And this could come across as bullying. You could open yourself to, essentially, they don't say all the details, but what I read it as, you're opening yourself up to lawsuits, you're opening us up to lawsuits. So we have a code of conduct here that says you cannot make it very obvious who you're talking about. So instead of saying the name of a person or their title, I might have to say leadership.
Right.
So that's what they did when they came to me. And, they do this, apparently this is like very common practice with Glassdoor. Because they review the reviews, right, to make sure that it meets their policies. So I wasn't so much shocked as I was offended that there wasn't a place where I could just be honest and tell my story without corporate interference.
Just want to make sure I'm understanding you right. So these mofos told you that by you saying, hey, this is what happened to me, this is the behavior of these people towards me that was unprofessional and racist and dehumanizing. And because you wrote that, they said you were bullying?
Yes. One of our leadership, the COO at the time, wore a Saddam Hussein mask with a Kurdish flag behind him for Halloween. And that's incredibly offensive. To work, for on our Zoom call, incredibly offensive, right? And I put that in the review because at the time we were like, do we leak this to the media? What do we do? What do we do? But we all needed our jobs, right? And at the end of the day, it was one of many things that this very specific person had done. And so my review was like, here's a list of every single time I should have left this company. Here's a list of every single time I should have leaked something to the media or sued or whatever, which I eventually did sue. And I won. I got a settlement, and because I was in the right. But Glassdoor is like, nope, you can't do that. And I might be able to find screenshots of what they said to me, but I edited it and posted it again. And it's anyone who knows me who's worked there is like, oh, Ansa wrote this. Because my experience was so specific,
right?
That everyone was like, write a review. And I feel like writing reviews is so cathartic sometimes. But what I want is to know that people like me have been helped by my review. Yeah. That's where the community aspect comes in of Blacklist. That's why it's different from other review sites, because it's a community. It's resources. I had never heard of constructive dismissal before. I was actively being constructively dismissed, which is illegal. And somebody said, that's constructive dismissal.
Wait, what is constructive dismissal? School us.
Yeah, constructive dismissal, there are other terms for it, but I think that's the most common. But constructive dismissal is when essentially your workplace creates such a hostile environment that you quit so that they don't have to fire you and they don't have to pay you unemployment and they don't have to do anything. You quit. End of story. In my case, I'll give you like a really easy example. From years ago, I'm living in Hawaii. This is a totally crazy story, but I'm living in Hawaii and I was working for as an editor, just basically, a few hours a week, maybe like 10 hours a week. But it was kind of my full-time job at the time. And they slowly started cutting my hours. And I was like, hey, what's this? And they were like, oh, don't worry about it. And then one day I got called into a meeting and they said, we've recognized you're doing great, but we only are going to need you for 1 hour a week. And I said, well, I'm going to have to find another job if that's the case. And they said, That is like a really simplified example.
Wow. Yeah, people do that.
So, for example, at Change, the Change.org, which is the organization I was talking about earlier, there it was like little things where, we really want you in this role. We're not going to have a marketing lead role for you for a long time. And 2 weeks later, they hire a marketing lead. And we're not going to be able to do this. But maybe in the future, then a week later, they hire someone to do that. And it just kept getting worse and worse till I finally decided to take PTO, to take a break. And I get a letter saying, thank you so much for requesting disability leave. You can come back when you have a doctor's note certifying you sane enough to work. I did not request disability leave. I'm not insane. And I said so. And they said, well, you've talked about your mental health a lot on Slack. We have a mental health Slack channel where we all share resources together, and half the company's in there. So this is the face you're making right now is the face that everybody makes.
My brain's a little slow sometimes. Did you say this was change.org?
I did. Yeah. And this is the reaction that everyone gets. And they're like, wait a second. And I'm like, no, This is where I wanted to scream on a mountaintop and like warn people, because it's not just, it's not just change.org.
Right.
It's any organization that claims to be progressive needs to back it up with the proof. And I don't know that Change claims to be progressive, right? They do support a lot of progressive campaigns. I was working there for a few years, and I was like, but I mean, you all are kind of progressive. But the point is that
about
and eventually it got to the point where I was like, I can't go back. There's nothing to go back to. I'm arguing about my salary. I'm doing this. So I decided to quit, but I want severance. Now we're arguing about severance. So this is essentially, let's just make her want to quit. It's provable. It's hard to prove, but it's provable.
So, you know what? I just realized, because I went to their about page on change.org here on my handy dandy smartphone, and it's the world's platform for change. So they're talking about the actual change.
Yes, you are correct. They provide the technology to enable people and empower people to make change, but they themselves do not claim to be progressive. Yeah, exactly.
Right. It says on change.org, people everywhere are starting campaigns, mobilizing supporters, and working with decision makers to drive solutions. And it says who uses it, how it works, open platform business model. Could care less about all the other things.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, they never claimed to be this big progressive thing.
They never did.
But organizations like that do attract change makers. They attract people who want to make impact. They're in the social justice space, right? I'm not, working for Facebook. I'm working for change.org, so
wait.
Attracting people who tend to be progressive.
So, talent philosophy. Our internal hiring system is designed to work efficiently, engage transparently with our team and candidates, and help us scale with intention. Those actions in turn, so we're going to do everything and the result will help further our mission and not saying this is their mission, and keep diversity, equity, inclusion at the forefront of our operations.
Yeah, none of that makes any sense in English or any language.
This is what we need to pay attention to. I ain't seen no diversity in none of these pictures, but I see a picture of a gorilla on this video of a gorilla on this talent page. But this is what I want people to pay attention to when they're doing company research. This is a great exercise before we take a quick break. When it sounds good, but it never directly says we believe in diversity, inclusion. Like, there's nothing that tells me that that's their belief or their value system.
Yeah, actually, one of the biggest projects that I worked on before I left is building that for them. So their diversity commitments and all of that. And we did videos, and every person of color who was in those videos has quit since, including myself. And it's still up, it's still active. I use it in interviews to say, look at this work that I've done, because I am proud of it.
Yeah, you worked.
Also, like, immediately after this, y'all did that to me. So I don't believe any of that.
Right.
I'm distrustful of any company who has this like huge thing. I'm like, no, but seriously, how many people from underrepresented and underprivileged backgrounds do you have in leadership?
In leadership. And that's the tell. Mm-hmm. If I go to your board of directors and there are no people of color, I mean, no, like your diversity in your board is that you have white women.
No.
I can't work for you. I decided that. Like, I need one Negro or Negro adjacent.
At least.
If you ain't got one.
That someone who doesn't come from a privileged background is at the table. And at some companies, especially at Change, it was me. And that was a lot of pressure. And it was really stressful. And the people who came before me warned me and were like, you don't want to be the Black person in the room at these meetings. And I was like, no, I'm going to take this promotion. I'm going to take this job. And they were like, okay. And I took it. And immediately they were like, told you so. And
I'm sorry.
I mean, I think what it is we've talked about, or maybe we haven't. I think we talked on the phone about pet to threat, where I show up in these companies and I am a rock star and everyone's so impressed. And then looking back, I'm like, are you impressed because I'm a Black woman who's educated? Like, it's like telling me I speak well. Yeah. Like, what are you so impressed about? I've worked I'm 35 years old. So like,
and you see, they put you in the video.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They'll put you in the video.
So, and then you get there and they're like, oh, you're getting too big for your britches. You're expecting us to treat you like leadership, even though you're not leadership. And you're expecting us to listen to you, even though you have, this title. And then I get disillusioned and I say, okay, well, I guess I'm leaving. And they're like, yeah, we knew you couldn't hack it. And then I leave. And then you go to the next company. I had the same guy who was wearing a Saddam Hussein mask. He said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, I've been working to be a chief marketing officer for my whole career. And I feel like this role, I was a new executive at the time. I said that this role is going to really help get me there in the next 5 years. And he said, no. I said 5 years, not 15 years. This is a man who didn't know anything about me. And he himself is a early 40-year-old executive, a chief executive. And I, who's just a few years younger than him, it's going to take me 15 years to get to where he is.
Did he think you were younger? Because Black don't crack.
I know Black don't crack, but maybe he thought I was younger. But either way, that's not something you say.
You were like 20-something.
That's not something you say. I mean, there are so many times where they're like, we need someone who's graduated college in like 2010 to take this role because we need someone who's really experienced. And I'd say, I graduated college in 2010. And he would look at me like, yeah, but you're not very experienced. It was awful. And so, I'm in my early 30s at this job, working for people in their early 40s who are telling me it's going to take me forever and a day to get to where they are. Meanwhile, they got the job because they're really good friends with the CEO.
Right.
And it's the only company they've ever worked at.
Right.
So it's stressful. And I wish I had a community, and now I do, of people who say, this is what happened to me. And it's not a don't ever work here. It's just a know what you're getting into.
Eyes open, eyes wide open. On that note, we're going to dig more into Blacklist, where you go, what you're supposed to do, how it works. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to dig into it when we get back. And we are back. We're talking with Ansa Edim. Ansa, tell us, how exactly does Blacklist work? Like, you put this together in a day, and the intention was, I'm gonna put this together. Screw you, Glassdoor, and I'm gonna write everything. And I'm gonna tell you all the tea. You gonna get it all. So how did it go from one day I'm making this website to now there's this business model Tell us that story. Bring us along on this journey.
So at the core of what we do at Blacklist is restorative justice, which means that people are safe to share their stories, to warn other people about their experiences at a certain company. Companies then get on the list, the blacklist. So if somebody shares a story about a company, that company is on the list. We have over 600 companies on the list so far. And nobody can ever get off the list because that will always have happened to that person.
Right.
What you can do, though, is through certain criteria, through working with me, working with other DEI specialists, and proving to us at Blacklist that you meet certain criteria to become a safe place, or that you put things in place to help you become better, you can earn a Blacklist badge, a seal of approval. We are Blacklist approved. And that can go on your jobs page. That can go anywhere you would like it to go. All of this, of course, is the company then pays to work with us and such. And at the end of it, I go back to the person who posted the review and I say, look, because you told your story, the company has made these changes. And that is restorative justice in a nutshell. It's a cycle that says, look at what you have done because you did not stay silent, because you refused to be silenced. And for companies, it's kind of shaming them, honestly, into saying, look, how embarrassing is it that you're on this list 3 times, sir? You're on this list. So many people have written about you, and people are looking at this, at your company, and it's not enough to say, no, look at our DEI statement. No, look at this thing. Right. One of the things about that I don't think companies understand, and that I'm trying to use Blacklist to help them understand, is that equity helps everybody.
Yes.
So a basic example is that a lot of companies want to tout their diversity numbers. When I became the first Black executive at change.org in its 15-year history, which is pathetic, suddenly they started saying, oh, we are X% people of color on leadership. We're X. They kept saying it. Our executive team is X% people. They just kept saying it. And I felt like such a statistic. And it was really hurting me. Like, but y'all don't listen to me.
Right.
About me. It's not enough to do that. What I want to know is, what are raises based on? Are there clearly defined salary bands? So when I want to get a promotion, I should be able to look and say, okay, I meet the qualifications for this next level. And my boss has to convince me why I shouldn't be promoted. Whereas at a lot of other companies, your boss has to recommend you. It's very unclear. I've asked everywhere I work, how do I go to the next level? And some of the responses I've gotten from white bosses have been things like, oh, I'll let you know. You're almost there. That's not helpful.
No.
I need to see it in writing so I can hold you accountable. And that helps everybody at the company, right?
Exactly.
It levels us all out. So if companies focus more on equity as an organization, a rising tide lifts all boats. But what they do is they focus on, we need more Black people, we need more women, we need more this, we need that. But then they don't have any structures in place to help those people succeed. So that's what Blacklist is really trying to change.
I am sold. I am in. I hate what happened to you, but I am so glad that it fueled you to be this type of catalyst, because I think as Blacklist grows and more people learn about it, more companies who are, putting up black boxes on their social media when George Floyd died, who also have had a bunch of restructures and now letting a bunch of people go. And, the vast majority of the people impacted are people of color and underrepresented groups of people. But you believe in diversity and inclusion. I think the more we have people from the inside telling their stories, the more that these companies will have to reconcile that and take notice of that. And I know for a lot of companies, and there's some companies I've even worked for, their reputation means everything to them, especially when they are companies who provide consumer goods, right? And so those brands of the consumer goods that they provide, their company branding is tied to that. And when you have, a product that over-indexes with underrepresented groups in consumption, you have a duty to have those people have a seat at the table in your organization.
Snaps to this. I'm looking at you, Starbucks. snaps to this.
Baby.
Yes. So, I mean, they've taken a nosedive and they've lost a lot of money with the protests recently and the boycotts recently. And there are companies that are too big to fail, and those are few and far between. And I think that a lot of the organizations that we as everyday people work for think that they are too big to fail. Because by sheer luck, by having a charismatic white man as a leader, they somehow have made it this far. But look at WeWork, it's going to fall apart. You need a plan. You can't just have a charismatic white man.
Listen, the WeWork example and just Adam Newman. When you juxtapose Adam Newman's story, and if you don't know about Adam Newman's story, I will try to find a link to share. But if I don't, just Google this nigga. Like, when I tell you, if I ever meet this man in person, I don't know how I would react, because I'm angry you get to exist in the absence of Black women who are starting businesses at alarming rates compared to every other box, getting master's degrees, PhD at alarming rates and being still paid less. The data doesn't lie. I'm not crazy. I have a reason to be angry. But when you have an Adam Newman who was allowed to literally run a Ponzi scheme, a business Ponzi scheme for his pockets, right? And all legal, talking about WeWork as a technology company. WeWork sells working space, co-working space.
WeWork is a real estate company, period. That's to sell this thing. I have worked at WeWorks and as like part of a company that has, our office is also a WeWork. And I think the best way it was utilized was when I was working for a big company that had a big presence and we had a whole floor. And that was just basically like, this is our office, right?
Right.
I worked at a company also where the people in DC, this was actually a change. There are only a few of us in DC, so we have a little 4-person office in a WeWork. And that's cool, I guess, but what's the difference between that and me at my desk here or me at any other office? WeWork didn't really have an edge there, but people will believe a charismatic white man.
Yes, because he's the vibe. And then they went, so mind you, billions of dollars gone, just poof, like it meant nothing. They're starving people all over the world, but billions of dollars gone because of your charisma. Now you done charismatically got another $250 million to solve some world problem, supposedly, because you somehow are this strategic genius in business.
I heard a saying, and it was something like, whatever you think you have to be an expert at before you do it, a white man has done it poorly and been paid to do it poorly.
Facts.
So just do it.
Just do it. But I think what makes me angry is that then you have juxtaposed against it, Adam Newman is Ed Bloom, who is suing him and his little cronies, suing the Freedom Fund, where in a world where Black women get less than 0.5% of the venture capitalist money, Adam Newman can get $250 million to fuck off and do whatever, and a Black woman can't even get $100,000. You don't even want a Black woman to have $100,000?
Because if we take a piece of the pie, to them, it's taking all the pie. I mean, as I am an accidental founder, right? I just kind of was like, oh, this would be a cool thing. In my head, I was starting like a blog,
right?
Like a whatever. Posted to TikTok, 500,000 people went wild. BuzzFeed reached out and, so it blows up. So now I'm a founder, a tech founder, and I'm unemployed because I quit this job in anger to start this company. And I need funding. So I'm applying for funding. I'm doing this. I'm pitching. And it became so exhausting having to beg for scraps while also watching the other people who have a basic idea and they have access to money and they have access. They're doing friends and family rounds because they're supporters and the people in their networks have money. And I'm not going to ask people in my network for $1,000 for $5 to support me because
we ain't got it.
Is to A, and B, what I need the money for is to pay myself a salary so that I can run this company and actually do justice by it. but I can't do that. So now I need a full-time job so that I can also, and it got so complicated that that's how I ended up in Europe a couple months ago, is that I was so overwhelmed and so overwhelmed with the weight I felt. Blacklist is such a big thing. And so many people were thanking me that I felt really overwhelmed. Like I owe it to people to do right by them because I said I would. And so what did I do? I set Blacklist up to be able to run by itself so that I don't have to constantly be checking constantly. It runs itself. So I'm not moderating it. I have like people have signed, you sign something, terms and conditions, you sign, community guidelines, but I don't have to be in it deep. Right. I can just focus on making money to pay my own bills. Right. But I went to Europe and I took my last pennies and flew to Europe and was like, I need 10 days to just not exist for a minute. I'm very privileged to be able to have done that. And then I met someone and now I'm going back because I'm still unemployed, but definitely going back to Europe. Right.
So when did you start Blacklist? How new is Blacklist?
Very new. I started Blacklist on August 25th of this year.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I felt like it was just something I missed. I feel good. Okay, so this is breaking, guys. We're bringing you the new now, okay? So, yeah, like, I'm excited about that. When this episode comes out, then this will still be new in its infancy and growing. I'm glad you automated it, but I'm hoping that we have droves of people continue to come and tell their stories about how they've been mistreated. I hope that maybe there's some companies that can do some research, or maybe not even companies, but organizations, like maybe some academic research can be done based on these verbatims. Maybe somebody can.
I thought about that. Actually, there are a lot of studies that are coming out. There's Deloitte does a global annual survey of basically the state of work.
And so there's McKinsey and Leaning.org.
So studies and research that just happen, that are happening and happen regularly. And they're all pointing to a conclusion. I have a hypothesis. And I think that the future of work, is going to be dominated. We know it's going to be 75% millennials by 2025 because people still think millennials are 18-year-olds. We're not.
No.
We're 40.
Beyonce is a millennial.
Right. We're grown adults and we're taking over because boomers are dying off finally. Yes. And those are the millennials and Gen Z do not work for money because our lives are bigger than that. We need money to sustain the lives we're trying to live.
Yeah.
And so I recognize this for myself when I have been saying for years and years, I'm going to be a CMO. I'm going to be a CMO. I got to the executive level and I was like, oh, hell no. I don't care if you guys are paying me $250,000. I'm out. I can't, I don't want to do this. I want to make enough money to live a soft life. So I went back and calculated how much money do I need to make to live the life I want to live. And it was like half as much as what I was making. And I was like, okay, let me find a job that makes that much.
Right.
And younger generations aren't even calculating. They're like, oh, you want me to work 6 days a week? Oh, you want me to work 40 hours a week, which is slave labor? Because in Europe, they're having people work 30 hours a week. No,
right.
I'm out. I would rather drive for Uber than have to go sit in your office 8 hours a day. And companies are not catching up. So I would love to study the impact of younger generations' demand on actionable diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging statements versus the quality of life that people are living, the quality of work that people are getting, and the hiring strategies at companies. I want to learn more, but I also want to come to some conclusion that says not just companies do better, but here is actionable advice to companies. If you want to exist in 10 years, you're going to have to do A, B, C, and D because future generations are not going to work for you, period.
Yeah.
And there are capitalists out there that said, I forget who it was, who said we need to make people afraid of losing their job more because they don't want to work. And I'm hearing this like,
yeah. A lot of CEOs, you hear this rhetoric and it's very fear-mongering, very fear-based rhetoric as if, but here's the scary part. So you've got those CEOs saying that, and then you've got these companies who are trying to literally buy up every single family home there is and trying to put people in a position where they are forced renters.
Exactly.
And I don't think that this is coincidental.
Mm-mm.
Because if you can't afford the rent, then you're going to be forced to get a certain type of employment. And then now the overlords of work and labor are now going to be in a position to dictate how you work, because you will now have to work to live. And so they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. I mean, when I quit my job in August, right before I launched Blacklist, I quit it in a rage because previously finding a job wasn't hard for me to do. I mean, it was just like, okay, I'm qualified for this. I had smashed the interview. I'm personable. Great. Moving on. But this right now, what we're in, this job search that we're in is insane.
It's different.
It's different and it's new and it's different. And I, for the first time in my career, I'm like, am I ever going to find a job?
Listen.
And it's really scary. But the thing that I recognized was that I was not scared enough. And I quit my job thinking everything would be fine. But I'm also proud of myself because I would rather be unemployed than be in the situation I was in. I still am fortunate enough to have a roof over my head, to have some bills paid, to have found a man who's just paying for things. But, you know, I'm very, very fortunate to not be homeless, you know, to have food. But I want people to be able to to hold businesses accountable. And what businesses are doing, what companies are doing, are saying, we don't have to do that because we know you need a job.
Yeah, that to me is the scary part. And I had a realization, and I don't know about you because I'm a couple years older than you, but when I was growing up, my whole thing is I wanted an office with a door. And every time I moved up, we started moving to this cube form life where now even the senior executive has the cube in the back and not an actual office. And I realized, like, wow, I've been busting my ass to try to get this door, this office with a door, and it's just not gonna happen. Like, unless it's my company and I create me an office that has a door.
Right.
And that's very painful to have that realization, because it's like, well, what the fuck I've been working for, one. But two, you sold me a bill of goods. You told me, go to school, they said. Get a good job, they said. And now you're pigeonholing me. And I appreciate, because I'm Gen X. I'm young Gen X. So I'm like, they call me an X-zennial because I'm on the cusp, right? And so I have millennial tendencies. And I think one of those tendencies is to be like, fuck y'all. That's some bullshit, right? And so I just wonder, like, with all that coming down the pipe and knowing that, you know, they make it harder for everything. They make it harder for you to have good health care. They make it harder for you to have good food. They make it harder for you to have housing. Like, they're making everything harder. And I think it is to squeeze us out and pigeonhole us. But at least with Blacklist, you can at least try to find places that aren't as bad. That is at least my hope.
The second half of it. There's a safe jobs list where people can, if a company meets certain criteria, then they can be on the safe jobs list. Companies have to pay to be assessed to be on the safe jobs list, but people can also post and say, like, I work here and they meet this criteria. And the criteria, like what I was saying earlier, do you have regular reviews? Who's are director level people? Do they manage their own budgets? They're basically, how are decisions made? It's a really long assessment that I have for companies. And Blacklist, in a kind of like three-tiered system or three-part system, there's the list that shames companies into being accountable, holding them accountable. There's safe jobs that promotes companies that are doing well. If you're looking for diverse talent, then come here, then promote here. Right. And then there's the third piece, which is, okay, how do we get companies from being a Blacklist company to being a safe jobs company? And that's where DEI professionals come in. That's where basic assessments come in, and where moving the needle comes in. Because I think you're right. It's getting more and more difficult. The rent is too damn high. It's too hard to be out here. And for me personally, when I left my job, I went on the exchange to get health insurance, and it was $450 a month.
Girl.
And I was like, I don't understand. I'm unemployed.
Right.
So why would it cost me this much? And this is good, right? Because this is quote unquote good. This is Obamacare. Like, we should be so grateful to be able to access healthcare without a job. But I just made a decision for myself that I couldn't go back to the corporate world and if I did, it would have to be on very specific terms. I need to be remote because Black people, plus size people, tend to fare better working remotely because you can turn it off. You don't have to code switch so much. You're on your own time. And I'm going to work remotely, not from the US. My plan is to work from wherever I can in the world, essentially, because I want to prioritize my quality of life.
Yeah.
And that's what this whole experience has taught me, that my quality of life is the utmost important thing.
Yeah. And I want that for all of us because, first of all, the ancestors, they worked too hard, bled too much, and they prayed so much for us. And for us not to be happy, for us still stuck in the system, like, we've got to have a better way. We've got to find a better way. We've got to make a better way for ourselves, which is why I do this podcast and why I bring these things to the forefront. Now, we're going to take another quick break. When we get back, my question to you is, what company so far has the most reportings that like, who's at the top of the blacklist for being the worst company, when we get back from the break? All right, guys, we are back with Ansa, with Blacklist, and I just have to tell you, I really, really appreciate you. And I know before the break we said, what is the company that has like the most posts? But I think a better way to ask that question is, let's not name names. Okay, so what is the organization or organization type or industry? Is there a certain industry? Like, what have you seen that maybe if I said, what advice would you give to Black people? Where should they go work, or where shouldn't they go work based on the Blacklist? What would you tell them?
Well, first I'll say Blacklist is about naming names. Let's be
okay.
We're about naming names. That's the point. But I think when you had asked who was like the most names, there are over 700 now. I said 600 earlier, but I was just checking. And so I personally have to like scroll through and like double check. And what I noticed that keeps coming up over and over and over is universities.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, people are like this. And I have worked in the university system before. I've worked in-house at universities, and I've also worked in ed tech for universities as a brand manager for SaaS companies. And universities, they're notorious for just being giant ships that you can't move. They don't turn quickly.
Yeah.
And universities, one thing from my personal experience working at universities is, especially working at business schools, it's a business.
It is.
We got to get butts and seats. We got to make this money. And I can see that. I could see people of color and people of underrepresented communities, disabled people, people who are in the LGBTQIA plus community, not wanting to work in like higher education and institutions. That's not to say that I don't see people thriving, because I do. From lots of backgrounds, I do. But I was surprised to see that my experience was that unique.
Yeah. No. And here's the crazy thing. If I am going to get treated bad, I'm going to get paid. Like, that's what I understand about academia. Like, I actually am in the midst of a career transition, and I at one point was entertaining, working for a business school and helping in their career services, like, taking a role as a career service advisor. And, most people be like, oh my God, Felicia, you'd be amazing, or that, you'd be great, blah, blah, blah. So I submitted my resume. What I didn't do is look at the range because in my mind, I'm like, you're asking for an MBA with X amount of years of work experience and all these things to be this career advisor. So like, it never dawned on me that you would want to pay me less than $100,000 a year when over 10 years ago, starting out post MBA, my salary was $100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So I was so
and they'll
confused.
Be saying, we're going to pay $43,000 a year but you need an MBA. Yeah.
Lost by this. Like I looked at that man on this Zoom call and I was like.
And some people will do it, especially at state universities, the retirement, but you have to be there forever. And that's also just not what's happening in the world of working, right?
Oh.
Like you make more money by going to a new company than you do by staying.
Leave.
And so you can be at this nonprofit, you could be at the university for 10 years and be making money that you could have been making 8 years ago.
Exactly. And so I just was shocked that but I guess somebody will do it. And then I felt guilty. Like I had to apologize to this thing because I'm so sorry I did not look further. I said I got excited about the role and I didn't even pay attention to the salary because it never dawned on me that you would pay so little, so little that in the States, the poverty line or low income line, rather, not the poverty line, but the low income line was like the low end of the range for this job. And I was like, I would be low income if you paid me this as an MBA.
Why would companies, because an MBA, I tell people, I'm happy I went to school. I went to University of Maryland, graduated in 2016. For my MBA. It was a great experience. My best friends in the whole world, all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. But for me, I like to tell people the only thing that MBA qualified me to do is to let people know I'm $100K in debt. You have to work. You have to network. It's not a game. I'm not learning how to be an executive. I'm learning the tools, the basics of business, all of that. But it's networking, right?
Yeah.
And when people say, should I get an MBA? I'm like, oh, I'm unemployed with an MBA. So I don't know, it's not helping me now. But yeah, a lot of the jobs that require you to have a master's degree or an MBA are not giving MBA. No, I went to business school.
Right.
I remember when I worked at Change, I started as an email marketing manager. And there were a couple of people who I met in the process. One of them, best boss I've ever had, he was like, you have an MBA? They hired you to this. He was mad. He was like, they hired you to this job with an MBA. And I was like, yeah, I know I'm overqualified, but I just want to work here. And he was like, no, you're not going to say that to yourself ever again.
Yeah. And so this is where I would love white men to understand their privilege because
this man was a white man, by the way.
Right. But they wouldn't have never given the job to a white man with your resume. Mm. Let's be very, very clear. I see this happening all the time. I hope that people Blacklist leave reviews about this experience as well. So you will have all your credentials, your years of experience, your multiple degrees as a Black person, and you will apply for a job that you probably shouldn't be applying for because you're overqualified from jump. But you apply for this job and they're like, oh my God, yeah, we got to talk to you. Oh, this is great. And then the recruiters put you through the process and then you meet with the hiring manager and all this stuff. You get through the whole hiring process, you get an offer. Not only have they lowballed that offer, they have now also, say it was a senior director role. They have now said, oh, well, this is actually a director level role and it has a different job and pay grade. And so this is what we're offering you now. So you have de-leveled what I was originally interviewing for this whole time.
And in that process, I think that we also get lost because we're looking for a job because we need the money.
Right.
And by the time we get to an offer, I'm just like, yes, I'll take whatever you can give me.
Right. Because I got to pay bills.
Yeah, I have bills to pay. But also, I think that what happens is that we feel devalued. So I went from an email marketing manager to a VP level in the span of 2.5 years at one company. And they're telling me, "Oh, you've done such a good job. Oh, good." And I'm thinking to myself, "I should have been here.
Yes, I should have been here. I should have been here
at this level." So
exactly.
I'm not surprised, but you telling me that you're surprised is telling me, wait, it's gaslighting. So now I'm thinking, wait a second, do I not deserve this? Did I not work hard for this? And so right now in the job hunt, I'm applying to director level roles. I'm not getting them. And I'm thinking, am I underqualified or overqualified? I've lost the plot.
Yeah, we don't know. And honestly, it really is. At this point, we have to dig into the people we know. Mm-hmm. Like, I have stopped like applying to jobs, like looking for a job and saying, "Oh, I think I'd be interested in this." Now, the only thing I'll do if I see a role open or see it somewhere, I will reach out to somebody in my network and say, "Hey, is there somebody you can put my resume in front of?" And if not, I chalk it up to the game, because that to me is the only way I've got real traction to get an interview, to get somebody to talk to me or even consider my candidacy. And so at this point, no more easy apply buttons, no more uploading my resume and filling out everything that my resume already has on it. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. So as we're getting ready to wrap up here, I like to end this segment with the most important thing. I think for our conversation, the most important thing that we need to understand is, what does the future hold for Blacklist?
I would like to see the future of Blacklist be tied so closely with the future of work that they are inseparable. The future of Blacklist is, I would like it to be funded in some way, because I can't dedicate time to it unless I have the funds to survive. To do it, right?
Yes.
So I'd love it to be funded. So I'm looking for it to be backed. But on top of that, I want it to grow so big that companies can't ignore it. Amen. So right now, it's really new. So I haven't had companies say, "Oh no, I'm on this list." They don't care. And that's understandable. But I wanted to get to a point where they're like, "Wait a second, we keep hearing candidates say we can't go through with this because you're on Blacklist." And I want them to say, "Wait, what's Blacklist? How do we get off of it? What do we do?"
Yeah.
Because the funding can be revenue generated too. I don't need, maybe I don't need somebody to give me, $500,000. I need companies to be afraid of Blacklist and to give me $500 to keep them off the list.
Right.
So I think the future of Blacklist is big. It's revenue generating, and it is holding businesses accountable left and right.
I love it. It feels like reparations.
Yes.
That's what it feels like.
Yes. And people were like, "You are getting the reparations." I was like, "Yeah, because that money's about to be in my pockets." But also, I don't aim to be a rich person. That's not my goal. I'm not trying to blackmail companies,
Right.
But the idea is holding companies accountable. If it feels like blackmail, I'm sorry that you all messed up. And now people are asking you to do better. But I, as a tech founder now and business owner, business leader, I think it's my turn. I feel like it's my turn as a Black woman to reap the benefits of my hard work, my technology, my idea. And it was really difficult for me in the beginning to think about. People were like, "Oh, you're going to make so much money." And I was like, "I am?" Like, I wasn't even thinking about the money. I was
It wasn't about the money. Yeah.
But if that's what happens, then I will believe that I deserved it. It's something I've had to convince myself of, is that white men all the time will be like, "Yoink, give me that money."
Right. With a quickness.
And why am I questioning this? So the future is big.
Yeah. No, and I want you to go forth unapologetically, because you are adding value to our lives, literally. And anytime you add value in a free marketplace in a capitalist society, that should generate revenue. That's how we are set up. There's nothing to be apologetic about it. There's nothing to be shy about it. And, if the shoe was on the white foot, you'd be in Forbes and you'd be in all the things. So what are we talking about here? Yes, companies need to pay.
You said something that reminded me of what you said earlier, which was being on the cover of Forbes and everything. When this started blowing up when Blacklist launched, and by blowing up, I posted one single TikTok and I was like, "Oh, by the way, I launched this thing," and it just went viral and went crazy. In my head, I was like, if I'm getting this much traction, if this many people are excited about it, the media is going to come knocking on my door and I'm going to be on the cover. I'm going to be funded so easily. And it didn't happen. And I think that, to your point earlier, I was sold a bill of goods. You come up with a great idea. You come up with a great business idea, with a tech foundation, right? They're using this platform to better their lives. It's sound. It's great. It's a great idea. It doesn't really exist. And nobody cares. And in my head, it was because of who we are. We are Black people, queer people, we're disabled people from underrepresented communities. So we as a community are like, yes, this is amazing. This is great. But the people who we need to convince that it's important haven't caught on just yet.
Right.
And I'm expecting a Forbes cover, people, maybe one day. But it was just in my head, I was like, all these documentaries we watch about white tech founders who have this like nugget of an idea, and they are thrown money, they're thrown magazine covers. And here I am, and here many, many other Black women are just toiling away doing what we know best to do. I thought that was a really interesting take on that.
But also understand, like, not every white man with a decent idea gets that. So we damn sure ain't. You know what I'm saying? Like,
how crazy do I need to be? Do I need to start a cult? Like, what do I need to do?
I don't even think that would help you. You know what I'm saying?
All these cult movies, there aren't Black people starting these cults.
I want to meet a Black cult leader.
Yeah.
Where? How? Who?
How do I even do that?
The closest you'll get to a Black cult leader is a preacher of a mega church, right? Yeah. Like, that's about as close as you can get. But here's the deal. I firmly believe in what you're doing, in the mission of what you're doing. I want the world to know about this, which is why you're on the show. How can people connect with you? Give us all the socials and give me the website again.
Yeah. So
it's Our Blacklist.
Yes, it's ourblacklist.org. It's OURblacklist.org. The company is called Blacklist. And people can connect with me. Honestly, TikTok is where I'm doing the thing mostly. Okay. You can also contact me through Blacklist. It's a pretty easy contact form, and I respond pretty quickly. That'll go to my email. If you want to hear more about what's happening, the latest about me and my life. Speaking of cults, I'm a cult of personality on TikTok, so it's about a lot of things. But I do talk about Blacklist as well. On TikTok, I have about 45,000 followers almost. So I'm getting there to some type of influence, but that's mostly because of people like you who really care about the work that I'm doing and want to hear about Blacklist and other crazy things I'm doing. So TikTok, you can just search my name, Ansa Edim, and I'll pop up.
Awesome. And I'm definitely going to put links to all of this in the show notes. Before we get out of here, I want to make sure, is there anything else you want the mostly Black women that listen to this podcast, anything you want them to know as they're managing their careers?
Put yourself first.
Amen.
There are going to be times in your career, I'm thinking about this like live because I'm feeling this vibe. But there are going to be times in your career where you are desperate. I'm in that space right now where I'm like, I just need someone to take a chance on me. And I'm a leveled person. And just remember who you are at all times. Don't let someone tell you who you are. Don't let someone like that boss I had say, oh, no, that's so far in your future. You don't know me. You don't know what I'm capable of, and you don't know where I come from, and you don't know what I had to do to get here. So just constantly remind yourself of who you are and put yourself first, because the people around you will try to tell you you're somebody different, that you're not capable, that you need a little bit more experience, but they're giving everyone around you a chance. And so don't be discouraged by that. You just have to remind yourself of who you are.
Right. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Well, guys, that's a wrap on another great episode of the Career Management Podcast for Black women. Yes, girl, this show is just for you. We're here to tell you how to play that chessboard at work, girl. So subscribe, comment, like, follow us on social media at TrillNBA Show. Listen, every time you tell one of your friends, you share this information, you share this podcast, it helps us to grow and make even more dope content just for you, unapologetically. That's why we're here. Now, if you are facing a workplace dilemma, such as a performance improvement plan, or you're not able to secure your promotion and raise that you have worked for and you have deserved, basically, if these people are playing in your face, we are here to help. Go to trillmba.com/coaching to schedule a one-time one-on-one call to workshop your specific dilemma with me. Or schedule a consult to get more information about the consulting packages that I do offer on a longer term basis. As always, you can reach out to us with your listener letters and your questions at trillmba.com. Until next time, guys, focus on your best possible outcome. Ask for help when you need it. Please, please, please ask for help. And as always, keep it trill. I'll see y'all next week.